I'll tell this. I was thinking of this earlier, but we were in Europe one time. Paul, you probably remember this, but Chet knew that I loved Paul McCartney. You know, everybody does, but he knew I loved him. And I was, for some reason, I'd gone down to Chet's room that night or something. I can't remember. I think he was playing cards or doing something. We were on tour. It was somewhere in Europe, and I think the next night we were playing in London at Royal Albert Hall that night, Paul, if you remember. And a bunch of Paul McCartney, a bunch of his people were coming out, going to come to the show. Well, the phone rang while I was at Chet's room, and I heard Chet say hello, and he goes, "Hey, Paul," and Chet was so. I say this to illustrate how cool he was, that he wanted to share stuff with people all the time. He was so giving. But he looked at me and he goes, "It's Paul McCartney." And he's going, "Yeah, oh really? Okay, yeah, tell Linda hi." And he goes. Now, so I went over and he let me bend over and listen. And that was really cool.
Billy, you've got a road story and a performance, and I know we're running out of time, but I definitely want to get this in, and then I want to ask Steve to close out the program. But tell us about the time that you and Chet went up to Kentucky for something called the Outhouse Blowout.
Yeah, that was the great Outhouse Blowout. We went up there. It was about 20 years ago, and Chet had an old friend up there named Gene Lane. Gene Lane, and they had a store there called the Penn's Store. It's an old country store, and it was the oldest store still owned by a single family in Kentucky, and they wanted to have a big celebration, so they wanted Chet and me to come up because I'd written the Outhouse song, and it was kind of like the theme song of that get-together. The great outdoor. They had outhouse races and just all kinds of stuff.
Would you like to play that song for us?
Not necessarily. Actually, this is the only minor hit I had as an artist. But I did 16 years of research on this, so I know what I'm talking about. They passed an ordinance in the town. They said we'd have to tear it down. That little old shack out back, so dear to me. And though the health department said its day was over and dead, it will stand forever in my memory. Don't let them tear that little brown building down. Don't let them tear that precious building down. Don't let them tear that dear old building down. For there's not nothing like it in the country or the town. It was not so long ago I went tripping through the snow up to that house behind my old hound dog, where I'd sit me down to rest like a snowbird on his nest and read the Sears and Roebuck catalog. I would hum a happy tune peeping through the quarter moon as my daddy's kin had done before. It was in that quiet spot daily cares could be forgot. It gave the same relief to rich and poor. Don't let them tear that little brown building down. Don't let them tear that precious building down. Don't let them tear that dear old building down. For there's not nothing like it in the country or the town. Well, it was was not a castle fair, but I could dream my future there. Build my castles to the yellow jacket's drum. I could orbit around the sun, fight with General Washington, or be a king upon a golden throne. It wasn't fancy built at all. We had newspapers on the wall. It was air conditioned in the winter time. It was just a humble hut, but its door was never shut, and a man could get inside without a dime. Don't let them tear that brown building down. Don't let them tear that precious building down. Don't let them tear that dear old building down. For there's nothing like it in the country or the town.
One of the first songs I ever learned on the guitar. And